This is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Hope you enjoy this Critical Thought, your daily discussion on game design. And be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and you can pitch future Critical Thought topics. Alright everybody, we've got a good Critical Thought for you today. My topic is going to be Space-Based DF9. This was originally going to be next week's Dissecting Design piece, but when I was thinking more about the game, I came to realize that it wasn't a design problem that had sunk it, but it was more of a production and management issue. So our critical thought is essentially going to be, this is how you don't do early access. So if you missed the original release, Space-Based DF9 was essentially going to be the next game from Double Fine, following the Broken Age Kickstarter, and before the massive Chalice Kickstarter. And essentially what it was going to be was Dwarf Fortress in space. That would probably be the simplest way of putting it. And the idea was you pick an area, you settle a colony, and then you have to manage air, resources, food, stuff like that. People will come to your colony and take residence, and they come with different traits in terms of personality and what skills they can do. And as they stay around, they'll grow, they'll fall in love, or they'll get launched out of an airlock somewhere and get killed. And the entire idea, of course, was trying to get that Dwarf Fortress, colony simulator kind of feel to it. And this also came following Prison Architect. And as you know, we did a critical thought on this earlier, or a few weeks ago, where I talked about what they did right in terms of managing expectations, designing the game, and most importantly, making use of the early access model. And sadly, Double Fine with Space-Based did not do that. And the thing about it was, when the game was originally launched, it wasn't that bad right out of the gate. Of course, it was very rough to begin with. You had very basic systems, stuff along those lines. But this wasn't a case where you launched the game and it was horrible and we had to wait for it to get good. The foundation was there. And it very much started out like Prison Architect, which when it was first put in alpha was, again, a very bare bones experience. And Double Fine actually planned a pretty robust development plan for the game. Now, of course, this will actually come back in a few minutes, but I'm actually on the site thanks to the Wayback Machine, and they had a lot of stuff planned, from adding in bartenders, mental health, construction tools, life simulators, AI, and then they had all kinds of technology. You could visit other people's bases, and then they had crazier stuff like set up laws, land on planets, holodecks, time travel. I mean, this was basically going to be, once again, Double Fine's, that crazy, quirky charm they like to add into all their games, from Brutal Legend, Psychonauts, and even something like Headlander. And things were looking up. Again, Double Fine is not a new studio. They've been established well before this point. So the question, though, is, what happened? And this is where we get into some important lessons for you in terms of early access. So, the big mistake number one was, after the game came out, it had like a few weeks of patches. They were planning on having major builds, what we expect out of early access. And then they disappeared. I mean, they completely vacated the forums, the devlog, the website, you name it. The developers went away. And they went away for a good, I think it was 4 to 6 months. I'm trying to remember, this was 2014, if I remember things correctly. And that's the number one thing you don't do. And for you developers out there working on your own game, get this tattoo, get it embroiled on something, get it, in neon lights above your head. Do not disappear when you're working on an early access title. Now, in typical game development, when you're not dealing with the public on a day-to-day basis, you can go dark from time to time. When we look at traditional games, we pretty much don't hear from developers for months or even years. And then we get a preview, maybe we get a piece in a magazine, and then the game comes out. But when you're on early access and when you are trying to market and fund your game with the help of your fans, you cannot disappear on them. Because they will think, of course, that maybe your game died. Maybe you just gave up. And then I'm not going to support your game. And if I don't support your game, I'm going to tell all my friends not to support your game. And the downward spiral begins. And what it turned out, and this was just a major blunder on the development team's part, was they decided to take time off from the game to work on another one of Double Fine's in-house game jams. They have these game jams where they basically come up with new ideas and trying to, get their creative juices flowing. And I think Space Base or Massive Chalice may have came birth from one of those game jams. And the team decided to take off from working on Space Base and go to the game jam. And if this was a traditional game being developed, in-house, publisher funded, that could have worked. But you do not do that when you're asking the public to fund your game. And as the major point of contrast, we can look at Person Architect. Each month, they had a new build out and a video telling everyone what they were doing, what's actually in this build, and what they're hopefully to work on next. You pretty much had a good estimate of what's going on with Prison Architect month by month. And that's the other major point. Once you get onto early access, you need to establish early and quickly what your dev cycle is going to be, your build cycle. Are you going to release patches once a month, every 2 weeks, every 3 months, every time there's a full moon? Anything like that, you need to establish this early on to give the consumers confidence that you are sticking to a schedule. Many times it's very easy to become overwhelmed by game development, and then you're just entering the spiral of, I had to get work done, but I'm working on this, and now I can't focus on this, and now this system's falling behind, and now we're running out of money, and now the game's dead. And it's very important, again, once you've established what your build cycle is going to be, that you have to adhere to it, unless you make a really good explanation why not. With Prison Architect, Introversion took a few months off, not consecutively, like 1 month and then like a few months later they took another one off due to like family situations. I think at one point one of their wives was giving birth, so they decided to take a month off from doing a build. So when family issues like that or situations come up, people are more than reasonable to accommodate you. But if you just disappear without any explanation why, they're going to get very pissed off. And what happened was this negative feedback just began the death of Space-Based DF9. When the development team came back like a few months later, they found a lot of people angry with them, and they found their sales have plummeted. And this is the other major point. All that stuff I was telling you about in terms of what they wanted to add in, there's one caveat to that they didn't mention. That was all based on them getting, I believe it was 2 to 3 years of funding through early access. That's how they were planning to develop regardless. They were only going to do that if there was money coming in. And there was no mention of that on the website. So when the funding stopped, they decided to stop working on Space-Based DF9, and in a very sneaky move, they updated their website and removed all the features they planned in the game. And instead, dressed it up by saying, we accomplished everything we set out to do. And for people like myself who are following the game since day one, or since build one, we were very pissed. And this takes us to the other point about what you don't want to do on early access. You never want to commit to something that you're unsure of. There's a far cry between saying, I would like to do X, Y, and Z if we can figure it out, versus saying, our game will have X, Y, and Z in it. This is one of the major problems, or one of the big traps you can fall into with Kickstarter and crowdfunding. If you promote 20 different stretch goals and you have no idea how any of them are going to work. And with Space-Based DF9, what ended up happening, if I can pull up the site again, this is the old one, I mean, the list that they have is huge. It's a good, almost like 5, 6 pages of things that they were playing in terms of their near future updates. And ironically, as another really good telling sign of some issues, underneath their current focus, and I'm looking at their October 13th capture, or no, I'm sorry, their February 17th capture from the site of 2014, it shows no current focus. And that's not good. You don't want people to be guessing as to what the hell you're doing each month. And that's kind of what happened with Space DF9. So the issues from disappearing hurt their development cycle, which then hurt their sales, which then came back to hurt their development again. And when the game was released, people were, again, it was slammed by negative reviews. I wrote a negative review, and it just was a case where this didn't have to be. Space DF9 looked like it was going to be an amazing game. I mean, 3D, or like, I guess 2.5D Dwarf Fortress that's more accessible is a dream idea for a lot of developers. And now that I think about it, I am really having bad luck with those kinds of games. Space DF9 didn't work. Clockwork Empires didn't work. So now I'm really, a part of me is nervous about Stonehearth and Oxygen Not Included. I really hope that they will buck that trend. But let's wrap things up for tonight. So to summarize, in terms of what you never want to do if you're on early access, the first thing is disappear. If you have to go away or stop working on your game, then you have to let people know about it. Once you get onto early access, it is about, again, you have to prove to people that not only is your game is good, but that you can be trusted as a developer. The second thing you want to avoid with early access is over-promising. Again, you have to spell things out as clearly as possible, what you can do, what you can't do, and what you hope that you can do. And many times developers will promise, no pun intended, the moon and the stars, and then they can't deliver. And it's better to deliver on what you can do than fail to deliver on what you promise to do. And then the third thing is, in terms of managing your budget and such, you have to be really careful. And I would like to go into more detail about it, but that is a topic that unfortunately is out of my knowledge base for right now. But I'm sure for you developers watching this, especially those of you in the indie sector, you have probably had to deal with those tough choices in terms of design versus budget. And if you have any stories you're willing to talk about, be sure to let me know in the comments below. But let's wrap things up here. As always, thank you so much for watching these videos. If you're enjoying things for the first time, be sure to like and subscribe. If anyone has a suggestion for a dissecting design, critical thought, or whatever, please let me know below. I could really use a new dissecting design, and before anyone says it, I know Darkest Dungeon is the easy one, but I want to build up a collection of other topics before we get to the easy ones. Anyway, be sure to check back daily for more great content here and on GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games. So, until tomorrow, have a great night, and I'll see you then. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GWBycer for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GWBycer for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.